This is the Foxhole Podcast.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm sitting in the dark, as you can see, for a reason that will become obvious to you all here shortly. I'm here today with former airborne soldier and Gulf War veteran who was medically retired from the U.S. Army and served just short of 14 years. He was part of the team that blew up the infamous Khamisiyh chemical bioweapons facility. The destruction of that plant has been said to be the largest man-made non-nuclear explosion ever recorded. It resulted in multiple injuries to our guest today, and at age 51, he's had 24 surgeries, is legally blind, lost his left eye in May, had stage 3 prostate cancer before having his prostate removed, and is now battling stage 4 lymphatic cancer. He's been at war with these injuries since 1991. He's a testament to what is rarely talked about with respect to chemical weapon exposure, especially as it's related to chemical weapons exposure in the Gulf War. His name is Chris Tullius. Chris, welcome to the Foxhole.
Thank you.
We have a lot to talk about today as it relates to Desert Storm and your Gulf War symptoms. I'd like to sort of set the stage for that discussion a little bit by giving our listeners a little bit of background of who you are. What year was it, and how old were you when you entered the Army?
I was 20 years old.
And you went to boot camp where?
At Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
And your AIT school?
Yes, straight 13.
Which is what?
It was a straight 13. It was boot camp and my AIT all together.
Okay, and what was your MOS?
12 Bravo.
Which is?
Demolitions.
For those of us knuckle-dragging Marines who don't know Army lingo, demolitions.
I was an engineer.
So you left from there, and where was your first duty station?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Fort Bragg.
Yep.
And did you have any deployments prior to the Gulf War?
Yes, Honduras. The 82nd Airborne's area of operation was, it was Central and South America way before the desert ever even kicked off. So, yes, we did projects and we built runways and shit down in Colombia and, Panama, you name it.
Right. So you had
Honduras.
You had a good sense of experience behind you before Desert Storm happened.
Yes, absolutely.
And so to prep the landscape a little bit before we talk about Khamisiyh, I want to just make it clear to our listeners that there were a lot of chemical weapons facilities that were blown up and targeted during the air campaign of the Gulf War. Oh. And there's little doubt, and it's pretty unequivocal at this point, by investigation led by Senator Regal, and the main investigator on that's a guy named Jim Tewitt, who was a former Army medic turned secret member of the Secret Service turned investigator who ran the investigation for Senator Regal. And their conclusions were that during the air campaign, a lot of these chemical weapons facilities were targeted by U.S. and coalition forces. The fallout of those bombings blew over U.S. forces and poisoned hundreds of thousands of U.S. And allied personnel. However, those bombings is not what, and the fallout of that is not what we're talking about today.
No.
Khamisiyh was blown up by U.S.
Leadership.
forces. Yeah, later, after the ceasefire was called, U.S. forces went in to blow up Khamisiyh. Now, this is where it gets to an interesting story, I think, for you. There like everything and happens in war, people end up at the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the right time. And you weren't supposed to be at Khamisiyah.
No.
Maybe just walk us through how you ended up there and then your arrival. What happened when you got there?
Excuse me. Yeah, so we were at Tullius Airfield, western Iraq, and the 27th Combat Airborne Engineers was our sister unit. And anyway, they were at one end of the runway. We were clearing warehouses, inventorying and stuff like that. So we heard the explosions. So what happened is there was a Private First Class King who I actually went to basic training with, and 8 other members besides him. It'd be 9 that were killed total. So, the Apaches had hit the airfield with cluster bombs. So, they should have just done pop and drops, is what we call it. You put a piece of C4 next to the mine or the cluster bombing or whatever, and you just get back and you blow it. But for some reason, the company commander of the unit wanted, Private First Class King was his name. He's a black guy. So, they wanted to put the bomblets in a pile, and then they were going to do a mass blow. So, all the members of the chain of command got together and they started arguing, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do this. We should just pop and drop. And King threw the last bomblet cluster on the pile, and they blew. So the company commander that insisted on blowing it in the pile, all that was left was his head and his torso. He lived about 60 seconds to see his mistake. That's the truth. Nobody will argue that.
So
yeah.
Was it those guys that were supposed to be at Khamisiyah?
They were supposed to go to Khamisiyah to blow it. And I don't know what the hell we were going to do. I guess, we were just going to stay at Tullius Airfield, and who knows what they were going to have us do. So we had emergency operations meeting that night, and they said, hey, 27 just got in this huge minefield accident, and we have this follow-on mission. It's at this bunker complex, Khamisiyah. There's 100 bunkers and 43 warehouses, and we're going to go blow it up. So
you get there, and do you guys...
Well, we got there on March 2nd.
Okay.
And it was a madhouse. Yeah, there were people there. There were families, there were women, there were children living in the bunkers. We had to go in there and fish them all out.
Iraqis.
Yeah, Iraqis, period.
So interesting. I wasn't aware of that. So part of what you were doing was...
Well, they were hiding. See, when we got there, like I said, there was 100 bunkers and 43 warehouses. So the B-52 strikes on the air campaign, like you said earlier, were supposed to hit them and blow them and destroy them. But that didn't work out so well. So they were so embedded deep, the bunkers, that the B-52 strikes couldn't penetrate. I think maybe they hit 4 bunkers out of the 100. So, anyway, they sent us in there to go do it. And I had a bad feeling when I got there too, huh?
Did your team inspect the bunkers before?
Oh yeah, we
preparing
did.
for
We got there on the second. Yeah, we did inventories. There is a Khamisiyah video on YouTube. It's scratchy and sketchy, but yeah, we went in there. You can see all the crates, and yeah, we did inventories, and then we like I said, we got there on the second. We blew the bunkers on the fourth, but we were experimenting with a couple of implosions, and those didn't work. So we decided we were going to do explosions, and that didn't work either because it wound up raining. You saw the picture that I sent you.
Yeah.
That's no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were throwing rounds at 25 kilometers.
What kinds of munitions were in the bunkers?
Oh, there were 122 millimeter rockets. You name it. Different kinds of mines, land mines. Many Scud missiles were in the warehouses. There were barrels of goop. I don't even know what they were, man.
Did they have any markings on them indicating what they were?
Yeah, I sent the picture. They're yellow bands and green bands. That's sarin and cyclosarin right there.
Oh.
I personally have my hands on those. That's a picture that I took.
So let me back up a little bit. As you were arriving there, you didn't anticipate, no one had briefed you or told you guys that there was chemical weapons at these facilities.
No, but when you're in an operations meeting, you have to be aware.
So
there may be, there
was a
may
possibility.
not.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Possibility,
Okay.
right. An absolute possibility.
So pretty quickly you discover that there's sarin and cyclosarin and among other munitions.
Well, we didn't know. We did not know. We did not know.
Okay.
Not until later.
So when you saw the barrels, you didn't know at the time that was sarin and cyclosarin. You found out later.
Yeah, we found out later.
I see. Okay.
It was a leadership. I think the proper way to put it, I think it was a leadership. God, man. That's some good leaders, but everything was kind of thrown. You got to think, man, of the chaos, combat. You had 9 guys killed from the 22nd. We got hurried up, rush, get up there, go blow the bunkers.
Yeah, it's
I think it was just a leadership fuck up.
Yeah, and it's combat. I get it. There's a lot of shit going on, and it's
way too fast for the mind to move.
Yeah, it's a fog of war, the sort of
fog of war.
Steel
Perfect.
term. Did Saddam Hussein wasn't making a lot of his own weapons, right? He was buying stuff from all over the world. When you guys were going through the bunkers on any of these things that were marked, what you thought later
they
became
were U.S. weapons.
You
period.
saw okay. You saw markings that were U.S. weapons.
Yes.
Any other countries?
Well, there was Syrian, there was Belgium, Russian, but I would say safely about 90% of the weapons in Khamisiyah were the United States of America. And because Iraq was in war with Iran for 9 years.
Of course. Yeah, we had an interest. He was an ally.
That was the stockpile.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that, and you bring up a good point. And it's important to note that the United States was supporting Iraq in its effort against Iran.
Yes.
Just a few years before Desert Storm happens.
And it wasn't like an all-out war. They just, the way we understood it, they'd lob a couple rounds here, and Iran would lob a couple rounds there, and it was just an endless battle for 9 years. And but a majority of it was chemical weapons. That they were lobbing back and forth, and there was dusty mustard in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, he used a lot of chemical weapons, and dusty mustard was certainly one that he preferred.
Yeah, that was a bad one. That was a real bad one, because not only did you have to wear your mop gear, and we did do it when we got to Khamisiyah, because the dusty mustard, when it gets in the sand, not only would you have to put, your mop gear on, you also had to put your rain gear on too, because, and if you breathe that shit up and, it's in the sand and it's so fine you can't see it, you're done.
Yeah, I have read that our mop suits were not.
It's actually the nastiest of it all that we were afraid of.
Yeah, I've read some reports that our mop gear was not capable of defending adequately against dusty mustard.
Not against dusty mustard, no.
Yeah. When you guys got there and you're going through these bunkers and inspecting them, just trying to figure out what you have and what you need to probably to put down to blow them up. Did you notice the classic signs of chem bioweapons being present, like dead birds or animals?
Well, the dead birds, animals, there were dead people around there everywhere. But, I don't think till after the fact that we put 2 and 2 together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, wow, we're really in some deep, deep, dark shit here. And, we thought, because like I said, the B-52s, when they hit, man, it's like arc light. It electrocutes everything. So, we thought, maybe, the B-52 arc light. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sort out, right? Because there had already been bombings there during the air campaign.
Yeah, well, they did try to hit it.
Yeah. So, Chris, you guys then put munitions around to blow this thing up, and does it all happen in one day, or do you have to?
No.
How does it unfold?
No, well, like I said, we try to do some implosions and some explosions. The implosions didn't work because it wasn't destroying the munitions, and we didn't want to take, we didn't want, the enemy to, because Republican Guard was still around there everywhere, and we were worried that they were gonna take the shit and use them against us and kill us. So, and this was way after the ceasefire.
Yeah. It was still pretty itchy, right? And people had trigger fingers, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
so the explosion that's on YouTube that you can see, is that the primary?
That's on March 4th.
Okay.
No, the last one was on March 10th. So that's the March 4th explosion, and the rounds are coming in because this is where the comment of mine on the leadership failure was, we are right outside of Khamisiyah, and we lit 37 bunkers for our unit number, 37. And, I don't know, I guess we were about 45 minutes into it, and we weren't a half a mile outside those gates, and the rounds were flying everywhere. We had so many cook-offs, it wasn't even funny. And the gas alarms, they went off. Everybody had a gas. You had a gas mask up. And you talk about total chaos. It was total chaos.
So to better explain for listeners who aren't aware, when you say cook-offs, it's after the detonation, there are rounds that are going off from the initial explosion, and those are just firing off, right?
Yeah, any of the sorties or helicopters weren't allowed to go anywhere in the vicinity because the rounds were cooking off up to 25 kilometers.
Yeah,
that's how big the explosion was.
Yeah, so you had hostile projectiles, to borrow a line from Gunny Highway.
Yes.
You had hostile projectiles flying all over from that initial explosion. That was rather dangerous.
Oh, it was terrible. And we had people, we warned them all too. We had psyops in there telling the people to leave because people were sheltering civilians in the bunkers. And we're like, get the fuck out of here because we're fixing to blow this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was absolute mass chaos.
So how long is it from that initial explosion on the 4th that you go back in to, because I'm sure you have to inspect everything and make sure, hey, there's
we weren't able to, the cook-offs were still going off until March 10th. So we did the 37 bunkers on the 4th, and then the last remaining of the warehouses and 57, 58 bunkers were left of the 60 left. We blew on the 10th. We could not go back in there.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah,
right?
they were put. Yeah, we had to on the 4th. As a matter of fact, when we were leaving, our sergeant major freaked out. The explosion was so big it changed the course of the weather. It rained all night long, and literally, you saw that picture I sent you of the cloud.
Yeah.
So, with the atmosphere and everything, we had an inch of fallout on our Humvees, and on the windshields, everything. Anyway, man, we were getting fired at all night long from people. We had rounds flying in. It really was absolute chaos.
So on the 10th, Chris, what happens? You guys go back in, take a look, and then figure there's more that needs to be destroyed?
Well, yeah, we had to finish the job. So we had to blow the remaining, 100 bunkers and warehouses. So,
and then
we went back in and blew them.
Did you notice anything awry on that second pass in there? Did you see anything else that was just, in hindsight now you go, wow, that was really weird? Or was it very similar to the first time you went in?
Yeah, I saw a lot of things weird.
Like, what do you mean?
I saw a lot of dead people. I saw just horrific shit. I knew we had gotten ourselves in something that we shouldn't have.
So when you say, Chris, there were bodies, are you referring
bodies,
to
birds, animals, dogs, you name it?
Do you think those deaths happened because of the fallout of toxic gas, for example, or were they already?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, when you put two and two together, when we arrived there to begin with, just from the bunkers that were hit with the B-52 strikes, we saw some pretty strange things. Like I said, one of the other dead giveaways, if I hadn't brought it up, was a lot of the bunkers were refrigerated. And why would they be refrigerated? Because they were storing chemical weapons.
Now, I don't know this for a fact, but do dusty mustard and sarin need to be refrigerated, or is it only biological?
No, just a cyclosarin.
Cyclosarin.
And when I had my surgeries, and they sent my lab work off, which I had Dr. Cohen, the one that wrote that letter that I sent you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sent it to the Institute of Molecular Medicine, Dr. Garth Nicholson. And sure enough, I was exposed to cyclosarin, biological agent, for sure.
Yeah, so you have to imagine there were folks in those areas even before you guys arrived that were being exposed to these, native folks that were living around there that were being exposed to.
They were the natives, and they found refuge in those bunkers, and
they're basically going
to
the
nasty mess.
So, Chris,
and there was nothing we could do about it.
Of course. I mean, that's understandable.
Just blow the shit and get out.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
When did you first notice symptoms yourself?
I went to Fort Hood, and one of my other buddies from Fort Bragg, and I started spitting up blood.
How long was that you went to Fort Hood after the March 10th time frame?
Probably about a year and a half.
So it wasn't until about a year later that you really start noticing these symptoms.
Can I merge somebody in right now?
Sure.
Okay, hold on. Johnny D.
Hey, man, what's going on?
I'm on a conference call with you right now. So, introduce yourself, Max.
What are you talking about, man?
Hey, John, this is, my name's...
I'm one of Heather's friends. He's doing an interview with me right now about Khamisiyah.
Okay, well, man, I'll let you go. I was just...
Wait, no, man, what are you doing? I'm waiting for you to call me.
All right, go ahead. What's up?
Hey, John, nice to meet you. So for a little bit, I'm recording the conversation currently for a podcast. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Okay.
Are you, so I'm a former corpsman. I served with the Marines during the Gulf War. And Chris and I were just talking about Khamisiyah. Were you with him there? Just to give listeners a little bit of context.
No, we were in different engineer battalions, but we were in the same area, yeah.
Okay.
He was at the warehouses.
No, I was at Tullius Air Force Base there. And then we went over to do actually my unit was split. You had like a squad of engineers with each infantry company.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we had like things that were sub-task out. And like we went and did we blew up there's a anti-aircraft defense battery around the area to protect the supplies going in and out of the ammunition storage facility.
Yeah.
So we blew up that stuff, and we also blew up some other defensive systems that they had up and down the railway that were on elevated platforms. You've seen those water towers, right, with the big ball on top? Sure.
Got them all over Texas.
They had some. Yeah, exactly. So they had flat little platforms on the top with like ADA guns on them and things like that. But part of my company went in there and actually part of the battalion. I think it was the whole Alpha company from the 307th went in and was doing some demolitions. And we went and rigged and helped rig some things, some bunkers here and there. But Chris's battalion, in large part, they got really tasked with the bulk of the workload in there.
Yeah, so we were just talking about, so Chris walked us through his arrival at Khamisiyah, blowing up the facility, and then we were just talking about his symptoms, and he mentioned that he got back to Fort Hood about a year, wasn't about until about a year later that he started seeing symptoms, which to me is really fascinating because...
Actually spitting up blood. Johnny D followed me through this process. This is why I wanted you on the phone, Johnny.
Yeah.
So, Idaho was on fire, and they tasked out the 1st Cavalry Division to go fight fires in Idaho, and I really started spitting up blood. And I went ahead and stayed for the whole deployment. I didn't let them take me back. And, it all went downhill from there. And, gosh, I had one surgery after another. Nobody could figure out what was going on with me.
Chris, what was the first? You said you started spitting up blood, but what were the things that came after that? Did you have?
Well, first they wanted to find out why I was spitting up blood, and then they decided to do some kind of esophageal repair surgery on me, and then I wound up getting infected. And the open wound in my chest. I forgot to send you the picture of that, but they carved me like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, Chris had a lot of bad surgeries and things like that. He did. But
and
Chris,
I still did my PT course too.
Right, but speaking of PT, that's where I was headed with it, though. Is that prior to us leaving Fort Bragg and going to Fort Hood, I don't know about you, Chris, I'm not going to speak for you, but I know me and some of the other fellows that were in my battalion, we were just noticing that, man, something's a little different, because we got enveloped by that.
The fallout.
The fallout from that huge plume. I remember looking at it, watching it, and it went up like a mushroom, and then it started rolling across the desert floor towards us, and it just enveloped us. I remember seeing a 2.5 truck out there in the, driving, and it had a ground guide, somebody walking on the ground in front of it, and then it just disappeared, and this thing kept rolling towards us, and I was like, man, is this going to stop? And then it was like a complete blackout for a period of time. I could still even hear that truck, and I was thinking,
very ominous.
I certainly hope that somebody will have the good sense to stop moving the truck if you can't see where you're going.
Right.
But no, coming back, we'd noticed like tightness of in your chest and breathing difficulty,
respiratory symptoms,
and I myself, whenever some things that we handled some. We handled some rocket systems, and they were just lying about. Some of these things at this ASP were in nice concreted bunkers, and then some of them were in what they call revetments, where they just push up berms of dirt to the left, right, and kind of like a U shape.
Yeah.
And then they would stack whatever ordnance in there.
Sure. Makeshift ammo dump or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then there was other portions that just kind of looked like a defilade, something you might drive a vehicle down into to get below the level of the earth, and then they would just kind of put whatever ordnance in there. But I remember we were rigging some rockets, and these were Chinese rockets. Because this is, all right, I'll get to that in a minute. These things, some of them were still in the long wooden crates, and when they're properly stored, apparently they were also inside of a polyurethane or clear plastic sleeve also, right? And then there's some of them that were just out and about, strewn around like drinking straws is what it looked like. Somebody taking some drinking straws and just throwing them on a table there. But these are huge rockets,
Yeah.
And I remember rigging some of these things, and then my dang feet started burning, like on the insides of my feet and stuff, where I was standing on each side of the rocket. And what it was, I mean, I didn't test it, obviously, and I'm no expert, but it probably had something to do with the liquid that was in that plastic, you know, that had absorbed into my jungle boots. And I laid back down on the sand and kicked those jungle boots off and was just rubbing my feet and legs around in the sand there, like around my ankle area, and maybe say 6 to 7 inches higher on both legs. And it was just like burning. And so that was red and discolored, and now it's even brown and discolored still.
So did you think that was some sort of chemical weapon, or was it just...
Yeah, I think I absorbed something that was what sort of weapon or compound might have been in it, who knows. But there was certainly ordnance from all different kinds of countries there. And it was clearly marked on the boxes, some from Jordan, a lot of stuff from China, a lot of stuff from Czechoslovakia. And then there you go, the United States. And, you know...
yeah, one of the things that Chris said is he thought about 90% of what he was seeing was from the U.S. Would you second that?
I wouldn't say that well, like I said, we had a different...
Oh, you were at different places, but yeah, of course, stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he was working over in those hard-shelled concrete bunkers. Is that right, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, what I did was a lot in the defilades, and I did go through the warehouse system over there. A lot of what I saw in the warehouses were loosely stacked firearms and just general field gear, things like that. But as far as ordnance goes, we you know, I handled the revetments, and you know, I guess there were maybe 3 or 4 bunkers.
I was trying to tell him that, you know,
there was a lot of ordnance stuff.
I ran in Iraq or a war for 9 years, and we supplied them, and that's where they came from.
Well, I don't know that that's where they came from, because we had stopped selling arms to them. You know, as a younger GI, well, you're a Marine, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think somebody was getting their hand caught in the cookie jar, probably got caught selling, or was concerned that they had been selling some things to them that they were not supposed to. Mm-hmm. You know, everything's about money. I didn't think like this as a 21, 22-year-old guy, just very red, white, and blue and airborne, and just like you in the Marines, I'm sure just very proud and eager to be involved as a paratrooper. I mean, because if I wanted to send troops in to get something done, I would want to send somebody who's not going to ask a lot of questions. Yeah. Who's just going to do what I ask of them, and just make this problem go away.
Yeah, it's GSD, right? Get shit done.
Right. So Marines and paratroopers, they're not going to ask a lot of questions. They're eager to get involved, you know. So now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, I do certainly believe that there was not that there was a conspiracy on my chain of command or nothing. By my chain of command,
failure.
I certainly don't feel like anybody in my chain of command was aware of it.
Yeah.
Because I think they were all well intended.
Yeah.
Operating off the knowledge that they did have.
Yeah, it's chaos.
Somebody in that logistics chain was probably pushing the issue of, hey, we need to make this go away. Mm. This doesn't need to be found.
Yeah, and you know, I hear what you guys are saying. I've heard the same thing from soldiers and Marines and sailors, like Seabees that were out in the same areas. And certainly that by no means are we trying to point a finger at anybody here. And it is just what it is, right? But
we've been saying that all along.
Yeah. I think it's important, and really what I wanted to do with Chris today, and I'm glad you joined, is I think it's an untold story, right? To me that's the bigger issue. There's a lot of people that don't know that this happened. And
Johnny's been my number one guy on telling the stories. So
yeah, I could tell he's pretty articulate and eloquent in telling it. And so I think the other thing that's not well known or is often misunderstood too is the illness that veterans have who served in that conflict. And Chris, you sort of represent like ground zero for some of these exposures, right? Because you were right. Yeah, you're right there. And John, is it Johnny?
Johnny was right there too.
Yeah, and so Johnny, you're in that same area, and then you have.
And I have some of the same things, but I think Chris must have really gotten a hold of a bad. He got a hold of some stuff that must have been. Listen, the facility had been bombed from the air already.
I told him that.
Like I was describing to you, it looked like those rockets were strewn like little straws.
I see. Like they had been blown up already. I got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking some of the casings on some of the ordnance was it was compromised.
No, for sure.
It was already fractured. Some of it had partial destruction. It was just a real mess. And I think he got a hold of a worse case of it than some of the rest of us did,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the bleeding issues, and I have the liver and pancreas issues where I'm going to have transplants and all that. But Chris has had these surgeries where, when we were at Fort Hood, because we PCS together later. Well, he PCS first. I was in Haiti, Operation Uphold Democracy. And then after that, I went over to Fort Hood. And I actually lived out there with Chris for a while. So I saw very closely. He was going through a lot,
You know what's interesting about this to me, related to you guys, is I've heard a lot of people say, the so-called experts, right, that like if you have really bad exposure, you'll have symptoms right away. But I just haven't found that to be true in terms of anecdotal stories. Like talking to you guys, you didn't get sick right there, even though you've had this really bad. It took a little while for these symptoms to manifest, and then they got worse as sort of time has gone on. And I hear that from other Gulf War veterans too.
Right.
To me, there
was some vomiting and things like that, that
sure.
happened while we, but it wasn't that we died, obviously, right there. But, I don't know who the heck knows. And I'll be honest with you, at 21, 22 years old, I didn't freaking care. I just wanted to shit destroyed because our damn number one thing was we can't leave here.
Yeah,
until
you want to go home.
Destroyed.
Yeah. That was on everyone's mind.
We were eager to do it.
What do I need to do to get the hell out of here?
When that stuff was blown up, though, it was just a big. That whole cloud was just a soup of a cocktail of whatever was there.
So, Johnny, Chris has been, I think he's been really fortunate on one hand that he's had some medical personnel have sort of got their arms around him and have helped him get some. Yeah, you've had some really good physician around you. Did you have that same experience, Johnny, where the system was taking care of you medically, or did you fight the VA like a lot of other veterans did?
No, I have to say this, and Chris got to witness it because he recently came to visit me like in September. Now, the VA, you have an administrative side that handles the paperwork, and that's just bogged down, and it's terrible bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
But on the medical side of the VA, I've had nothing but excellent service and kind, well-intended people working with me, and I think Chris got to witness that. And and even some of the administrative people at the locations, they've been nothing but good to me.
Yeah,
that's been my experience. I'm very happy with the VA, and I'm satisfied. Thank goodness for the VA.
Yeah, that is great to hear.
This thing has killed my liver and pancreas, so I'm a freaking diabetic now. And so I'm very dependent on that. They follow me closely, and I've got one of the best liver doctors, this guy Dr. Sin in Charleston. He's on the national board for the liver stuff, and he's on the board, the international board that convenes over in Europe with these leading liver specialists or whatever. And he's out of the medical university. He actually, I guess his primary function is to work out of the Medical University of South Carolina, but that facility is adjacent to the VA in Charleston. And so I was fortunate enough to have him, as a doctor.
Yeah, I've heard, in terms of specialists, a lot of veterans have said their specialists at the VA are just outstanding. And then a good handful, normally will say their primary care has been great. And just as you just have described it, it's the compensation and applying for benefits. That's the hump that's hard to get over. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys get stuck in the inability to get recognized their illness as service connected.
Max, you know what it is? Let me tell you, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. Whenever you're in the military, they certainly don't even tell you anything about your VA benefits. I had no idea. That the VA compensated you or anything like that. Whenever I got out of the military, they gave me my medical records and they said, here, take this to the VA and in process, they need to have your medical records on file. So I did that, and that happened to be in Washington, D.C. And whenever I got there, I gave them my name and social, and immediately they popped up and said 307th Engineer Battalion, 82nd Airborne Division. They're like, hey, listen, would you mind going down to the lab and just doing a little blood work and stuff? Because I was on a list,
right,
for having been at Khamisiyah. And I was in one of those little study programs for a little while there, but I just kind of got tired of getting poked and prodded after, I don't know, several months.
Yeah.
But it's not that they were being bad about it or anything. They were just doing a whole lot of testing and they didn't understand. And, like I said, it was just a chemical cocktail. Who's ever going to be able to split it apart and say this was nerve agent and this was something else,
Yeah, I don't think we will ever be able to get there.
Yeah, but
and I think that's
that's
okay.
I'm sorry, Max.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
But my whole point was, and I think this is going to be the problem with a lot of those fellows that are frustrated, is when as GIs, in the Marines, it's the same way. You just suck it up. You drive on. You don't want to bitch. You don't want to complain. There's that alpha male work environment. And then there's the whole thing of, I wouldn't know that tightness of breath or blood urination or this, or blood in my feces or what's connected to this or that, or if it's related. I may or may not mention some things because I don't know that that's a symptom of this or that,
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah,
I just simply is the ignorance to the medical side of it,
Mm-hmm.
But you've seen this CFR 38 before, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Code of Federal Regulations.
Yeah.
The people, and it's not these people's fault either. The people who do the evaluation, they're sitting there with a checklist like in a freaking Jiffy Lube or whatever. Did we check the headlights? Did we top off the windshield wiper? Did we,
Yeah, if you call it something other than a gastroenterology.
If you don't describe all of those different symptoms that are listed under that item, then they don't class you in that.
Yeah.
Or they don't give you the correct percentage. So I had to go educate myself on the damn thing and read it and say, okay, well, I have this and this. Let me read about it. Okay, yeah, I have this and it's this frequent. And, so I could figure out, am I at 10? Am I at 20? Am I at 40? Am I, where exactly am I on each of these issues?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to even make notes and say, hey, because I'm not a medical professional, and you have such a limited period of time with them, and it is. I mean, there's a backlog there was to get in to see people, to get your CMP, I believe they call it, right?
Yeah, CMP exam. I think you
so
said something.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I made good use of the time, and I was efficient, and I communicated to them what needed to be communicated during that brief window, so that they could accurately identify where I fell on the scale or what my issues were, so that they could diagnose and treat, my issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think a lot of GIs know to do that.
They don't.
And then there's a hell of a lot of GIs that are just too hard-headed to even put that effort into it too. And for that part, that's their fault.
Yeah,
because nobody's going to hold your hand in life.
Yeah, no, you're your own best advocate, right? And you have to figure out you did it. You found the right way to do it, and I've helped a few people through this process, and I think you can't just throw your medical record at the VA and say, "Here, you figure out what's wrong with me or what I should get." If you don't spell it out as it's related to in the Code of Federal Regulations, you're going to have problems. And that's why a lot of people just end up going to people who specialize in helping Gulf War veterans or attorneys to help them get there.
Right.
It's a complex process.
Then, I don't know about you fellas, but then, God, man, maybe it has to be that it's just a man or that alpha male issue where I don't want to sit there in front of another man and sound like I'm whining and crying and complaining about something, And I try to tell my fellow veterans that I've met to try to assist them with this as well. Say, hey, listen, read the CFR and identify, where it is you think you fall there. Make yourself those notes. And when you go in there, no need to try to retell the battle or the story or the emotion of it, because they don't care. It's not that, you know what, even if they care, they can't do nothing about it. What they're there to do is to assess your situation now. And the other thing, we've had buddies of ours that go in there and just say, I was in this unit. And you know what? There's lots of units. That doesn't automatically ring some golden bell,
Yeah, for sure. Now you're hitting really good points. I think that anyone listening can take that advice and be successful with a claim, because it's exactly what happens at the VA. And if you're not connecting the dots for the person who's reviewing your file, you basically are just it's like playing the lottery. You're just throwing money and pulling a handle, which is not a good way to go about business. And to your point, guys don't like to get in front of other doctors and tell them that they're bleeding rectally, or that they're tired.
Or they're having erectile dysfunction or whatever, things like that. Yeah, for
sure.
But they have to make that investment in themselves with that 38 CFR. They have to, because nobody else is going to be able to communicate that. They have to Part 4. They have to read that.
Yep, for sure. And it's not easy. You have to read it a couple times.
Nobody ever questioned my integrity about it while I was at the VA. I have to say that as well. Nobody was challenging of what I was telling them. Actually, I think they were probably relieved that I had made that effort to give them the information they needed so that they could fairly assess where I needed to fall on the point scale.
Let me ask you guys something. At the moment, think back to the time when you found out that there were chemical weapons in that facility. What was going through your mind at the time that you first heard that?
Go ahead, Chris, because I can tell him about mine, but you go ahead. I want to.
Yeah, no, I knew when we pulled up there was something bad about that place. It was just dark, ominous. I knew that I don't know, Max. It's one of those rot gut instincts that, man, I think we stumbled into some shit we shouldn't have. You know what I mean?
So, Chris,
we're gonna pay. We're gonna pay for it.
When did you formally find out that there were chemical weapons there?
Oh well, what was it, Johnny? I had my 4th surgery.
I don't know when you found out, but I know when I found out. Go ahead, and then I'll tell you my situation there with it.
Yeah, I had my 4th surgery, and they let me know, and they wanted to do a deposition. And Johnny knows I had a big actually, I had a few holes from my chest all the way down to my abdomen. And I was stuffing gauze in there like 4 or 5 times a day. And they let me know then. And I wasn't too happy about it. So, and then I started a fight. Like I said, they shut me down. We did the 60 minutes thing, and you can't find that anywhere. You can find excerpts of it. And I got to meet Ed Bradley and 9 of my war buddies, and they shut us down fast.
Johnny?
Yeah, well, briefly there, I think it's just my opinion, Chris, and forgive me if I'm misstating this, but it kind of frustrated me watching Chris have to go through what he was going through, because he was certainly in a more advanced stage of it than I was there at the time. And, he's my brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chris had been in my squad, and I was the squad leader. Then he grew through the ranks and became one of my team leaders. And then, he was such a very good soldier. I got to see him get promoted and move on to have his own squad and all that. I was just, it really upset me. But I kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with him. And it was either they didn't understand what was happening to him, and that's possible. I want to believe that that's what it was. I don't want to believe the other, and the other is that they just wanted to tuck him away somewhere. Just here, we're gonna retire you. We're gonna, he didn't want to retire. He still wanted to be in the Army.
Sure.
And but they wanted to tuck him away and kind of make the issue go away, is what it seemed like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that the chain of command was that way, because I don't think they were aware. I don't. But I think maybe the Army was just like, well, this is something that we really just can't control. This guy's going to have to go through the cycle or the course, and it kind of felt like it was one of those, if he lives, he lives, if he dies, he dies, But as to whenever I got the notice about it, they sent us a report in the mail, and I guess they were required to, and I'm certain they wished that they could get them back, because I used their own damn information as evidence that I was there and what they had declared occurred. Now that it's called, there's a manual or a pamphlet or whatever that notice was that they sent out to us. It's a booklet. It's called U.S. Demolitions at Khamisiyah. That's the title of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that whenever you start reading through it, you'll see that the demolitions began in March, and then in November of that very same
4th.
year, October of that very same year, the United Nations Security Commission had a team go in there, and they verified the presence of sarin, cyclosarin, and other chemical agents.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? Because for a long time, the Department of Defense says absolutely no chance there was any chemical weapons there, right? And it's not till someone else says, yeah, there was, that then all of a sudden it becomes, okay, yeah, maybe there were.
Right. They validated that there was something there. Because, when we were there, I did see canisters or containers or munitions that were gray in color, okay? And before becoming a combat engineer, when I first joined the Army, I was in explosive ordnance disposal training there. And I had been through, and part of it is, identifying ordinance and what it is, and so you can determine what the concerns are whenever you're handling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I saw that they were gray, some of them,
What does that
So
mean?
I didn't. It means it's some sort of chemical munition.
Okay.
Because regular, like, high explosive is green in color with yellow markings.
Mm-hmm. So you saw canisters or containers that
that were
trained
gray.
on that were gray. Okay, which would have been indicative of chemical weapons.
They were chemical weapons, and the different colorings on it would indicate the type of agent or hazard to be considered in handling it.
Do you remember what those were?
Whether it be, I really don't. At the time, it's just business, just trying to get the shit done.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it too much. But back to this book that they sent us, that U.S. Demolitions at Khamisiyah. When I read that, I was like, okay. It says, UNSCOM, the United whatever Nations Security Commission, their team confirmed the presence of those things. And then it said in the very next month, they turned that information over to the U.S. Department of Defense, our Department of Defense. Now, this still is in 1991. This damn book was published like 10 or 11 years later.
Wow.
Nobody. Now.
When did you get the letter?
This made me mad as hell because, if this just occurred, it's only 5-6 months after we were there, It seems to me if you had team members, if you had somebody on your team or somebody on your side that you had some concern about, possibly the right thing to do would have been to go to those units or find those people and say, hey, listen, I don't know if any of you guys are experiencing any problems, but if you are, come over here and we'll talk to you some more. If you're not, here's some contact information. And if you begin to get sick or have any issues, then contact, just God damn it, try to do the right thing,
Yeah.
But whenever they did that and then they waited so long to tell me, I think I did a little bit of maturing and growing right there and realized that not everybody is as red, white, and blue as I am.
Yeah, different motivations.
Yeah, things are more about green than they are red, white, and blue. And that's sad. That was a sad moment.
When did you get that letter, Johnny?
Oh,
was it 96?
We both got the letter.
I don't really remember.
But it was some 10 years after.
Yeah, it was probably about 10 years after.
So
it said something like, your unit may have possibly been exposed to chemical weapons from Khamisiyah. Yeah, it was a really cheesy deal.
Yeah, because we weren't out there on the outer ring. We were
ground zero.
We were right there on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right there on it. I mean, we just backed.
Yeah, it's kind of kick in the face, and it's like, oh wow, really?
But
and then you had people from other units. Oh well, oh yeah, I was at Khamisiyah too. Well, yeah, were you really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was like 50 miles away.
It's an ass chopper.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it was right.
We were right there.
Right, and.
But Max, I tell you, it made me feel like, I just got, let me give you like a sports analogy. I'm like, God damn it, we were in the same team jersey. How can you not tell me these things whenever you knew about it 5-6 months later?
Well, I think you're summing up this sort of sense of betrayal that a lot of people felt about that.
Betrayal's the perfect word.
Yeah, about that whole event. And to the point you just made, right? From the point that they get this information from the UN or INSCOM, they're doing the inspections there, right after you guys were there, there's our brothers and sisters are going to their medical facility saying, I'm extremely ill, I'm extremely sick, I think I got something from being there. And all the medical people are saying, yeah, war is stressful.
Yeah, well,
And
it's been so long now, they're probably laughing at them.
Yeah, and
oh, well, that was how long ago?
Yeah, it's just crazy that we let these guys sort of suffer. And people, I've talked to guys that were stuck in psych wards because they were so sick, and the doctor just said, "Hey, this is so bad, so psychosomatic. We're going to stick you in a psych ward." And
Psychosomatic.
And it's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, but it is emotionally distressing, because for the longest time there was a period of time there where people were like, "Oh, you guys, you know, this didn't happen or that didn't." Hey, bullshit! Don't tell me what didn't happen. I was there.
Yeah.
You know? Were you there?
Ask Johnny, I fought this from the very beginning.
I don't give a damn what the CNN told you.
Everybody's been begging me to write a book. And shit, man. Well, this is the very beginning. I appreciate both of you guys being on here, and I thank you so much, Johnny, for coming.
With that, we're coming to the end of our time, but this doesn't need to be the last time that we have a conversation. Johnny. I was very glad I had an opportunity to talk to you today. Please, when we're done, I'll sync up with you and Chris and make sure I get your contact information. As we come to a close here, I'll first start with you, Johnny, and then we'll end with Chris. Is there anything you want to tell other Gulf War veterans about the Gulf War, or veterans in general, things we haven't talked about that you just want to kind of relay to them?
Well, there's nothing we can do to change the past there, and I realize other people have maybe had some different experiences because you're dealing with individual personalities at the VA, but they are there to assist us, and my experience with it was a very positive one. I do believe the medical side of the VA was very helpful. And I felt like I did own a piece of it, and I had a responsibility to provide them with information because they're not mind readers. And I never had anybody question my integrity or truthfulness or whatever you want to call it about anything that I went in and stated. And so just read that 38 CFR Part 4.
Roger that.
You'll be able to find your illness or your issue in there, and it'll help you to better understand where on that chart you actually fall. And you must mention each of those symptoms that you're experiencing in order to get credit for it. And good luck, and don't let the administrative side of the VA get you down. I know that's easier said than done because that is emotionally taxing too. It really is. But good luck.
Thank you, sir. Chris?
Yes.
You have any words of wisdom to our fellow veterans out there?
Yeah, I do. Don't give up and keep fighting. Period. I have fought and fought and fought. And don't give up.
Well, with that, gentlemen, I want to thank you both again for being on the Foxhole.
Thank you, Max.
Chris, I think you certainly represent the spirit and embody.
Hey, tell Johnny what the Foxhole is, Max.
So it's a podcast, and I'll cover down on that with you guys at the end here. But Chris, I wanted to again thank you for coming on. I know it was not an easy process, and
no, it's not.
I thank you for that, and I think you're a testament to other Gulf War veterans who've had this exposure to keep the fight and to keep moving forward. And I think Johnny embodies that same spirit as well. So thank you, gentlemen, both, and I look forward to continuing our conversation later offline. As I would say to any of my fellow soldiers or buddies, Semper Fi, always faithful to what we do. Thank you, gentlemen.
This is the Foxhole Podcast.